From a struggling family ranch to the largest Angus cattle operation in Texas, this is the incredible rise of 44 Farms. How did a small operation on dusty Texas soil become a global name in premium beef? How do they produce steaks so good that 65% of their cattle grade USDA Prime? And how did their beef end up on steakhouse menus, in Walmart stores, and even plates across Japan and South Korea? This isn't just a story about cows, it's about vision, grit, genetics, and business smarts. So if you're passionate about ranch life, quality beef, Texas grit, and real American success stories, subscribe now to Digital Papyrus. We bring you deep dives into the most fascinating stories in ranching and rural business. Let's ride into the story of how 44 Farms became a prime force in global beef. Our story begins in the heart of Texas over 100 years ago. 44 Farms was founded back in 1909 by Sherwood and Josie McClaren. The McLaren family actually had roots in Central Texas even earlier. They settled in Milam County in the 1870s, where young S.W. McLaren, just 3 years old at the time, would grow up to pioneer new agricultural practices. The ranch's name comes from the 44 cattle brand first registered in 1909, marking the beginning of a legacy. For decades, the McLarens ran a traditional farm, raising cattle and growing crops through 2 world wars and countless Texas summers. It stayed a family operation across generations, weathering hard times and good. Fast forward to the late 20th century. The ranch land had been passed down to Bob McLaren, the great-grandson of the founders. In the early 1990s, Bob inherited a portion of the family farm, about 190 acres of what had once been a much larger spread. At that time, the ranch was a shadow of its former self and needed serious restoration to meet his family's standards. Bob's father, having grown up on the farm during lean years, Chad Bonges, tried to warn him, "Son, you can't make a living doing it." Ranching had barely kept the previous generation afloat, and the conventional wisdom was that a small family farm couldn't possibly thrive in the modern cattle industry. Heeding this advice initially, Bob pursued a career in law and even became an executive in Major League Baseball. Yet, the call of the land never left him. By the early 2000s, Bob McLaren could no longer ignore his ranching heritage. When the opportunity arose to run 44 Farms, Bob jumped at the chance. In 2003, he restarted the ranch's cattle operation with just 60 registered Black Angus cows. It was a humble new beginning, essentially a 4th-generation rancher picking up where his great-grandparents left off. Bob brought together some of the finest cattlemen and range managers he could find. His vision was clear: blend the old-school values he learned from his grandparents, love of the land, hard work, honesty, with new-school techniques in genetics and business. That balance of tradition and innovation would soon become 44 Farms' hallmark. Breeding for excellence. From day one of the ranch's revival, Bob McLaren knew that quality starts with genetics. He did his homework on cattle breeds and decided to focus on Black Angus, famed for their marbling and flavorful beef. In November 2003, the first Angus cow arrived at 44 Farms' Cameron, Texas pastures. This laid the foundation for what would become one of the most premier Angus herds in America. In fact, 44 Farms grew from that small seed stock to become the largest registered Angus ranch in Texas and among the top 5 in the nation. Such an achievement didn't happen overnight. It took years of careful breeding, record-keeping, and embracing science. What sets 44 Farms apart is a relentless drive to improve each generation of cattle. The ranch is known for providing cutting-edge Angus genetics to other ranchers across the country. They hold semi-annual prize bull sales that draw buyers nationwide, offering top-tier breeding bulls that carry the 44 Farms legacy in their DNA. Every calf's lineage is tracked, and data is collected on traits like growth rate, health, and most importantly, intramuscular fat marbling. This data-driven approach might sound like high-tech modern agribusiness, but it's paired with an old-fashioned principle: only keep and breed the best. Bob McLaren often emphasizes that their goal is to help fellow cattle producers become the very best they can be, moving beyond commodity beef to something truly special. By sharing elite genetics and know-how, 44 Farms isn't just improving its own herd, it's lifting the quality standard for beef across many ranches. Ranching the right way. Genetics alone aren't enough to make world-class beef. How the cattle are raised is equally important, and here 44 Farms truly shines. The ranch prides itself on being a working ranch, not a factory, a place where every animal is known and cared for by ranchers who live and breathe this work. Cattle roam on rich pastures along the Little River in central Texas, grazing on diverse native grasses. The team at 44 Farms manages their land sustainably, rotating grazing areas and nurturing the soil so that the forage stays fresh, clean, and even a little sweet. This natural diet provides top-notch nutrition for the cattle and keeps them healthy. Good, clean well water is always available. The ranch understands that the right kind of water is key to healthy animals. As the cattle grow, 44 Farms follows an all-natural approach. They do not use growth hormones or implants to speed up weight gain. Unlike industrial feedlots that push cattle to grow as fast as possible, 44 Farms lets nature set the pace. Calves stay with their mothers for about 7 months before weaning, ensuring they get a good start. After weaning, these feeder cattle spend their days grazing on grass, wheat, oats, and other forages, just as cattle were meant to do. Only in the final phase are they finished on a carefully balanced corn-based diet to encourage the highest degree of marbling and flavor in the beef. This grain finishing is done gradually and humanely. There's no rush. In fact, at 44 Farms, no one ever drives the cattle with motorized vehicles or forces them to move faster than a natural, easy pace. Less stress for the animal translates directly into more tender, flavorful meat. It's a simple cowboy wisdom that modern science now confirms. Stress hormones can toughen meat, so a calm cow truly means a better steak. Animal welfare is more than just an ethical choice here. It's a core business principle. The ranch goes to extraordinary lengths to reduce stressors in the cattle's lives. Handlers on horseback calmly guide the herds. Loud engines and shouting are replaced with patience and routine. As Bob McLaren says, "If you don't take care of cattle properly, you can never make a living doing it." He understood from the start that happy, healthy cattle yield the kind of beef that customers will pay a premium for. All roads lead to marbling, those tiny flecks of intramuscular fat that make a steak melt in your mouth tender. By treating cattle right, feeding them right, and breeding them right, 44 Farms achieves extraordinary levels of marbling in their beef. In one early test of their program in 2008, an incredible 65% of 44 Farms steers graded USDA Prime, far above industry averages. Considering that only around 2 to 4% of U.S. beef typically grades Prime, this was a sure sign they were onto something special. That means not only hormone-free, but also raised without unnecessary antibiotics, and with a respect for the animal and environment. The ranch has even coined a motto, "Know your rancher," som wine anfarnichir, inviting customers to connect with where their food comes from. Folks can visit the ranch, meet the people, and see firsthand the open pastures and content cattle. This transparency builds trust that every steak from 44 Farms was raised the right way. No great success story comes without challenges, and 44 Farms faced plenty on its journey to the top. Rebuilding a historic ranch in the 21st century cattle market was a bold move. The first hurdle was skepticism. Remember, Bob McLaren's own father doubted the ranch could ever turn a real profit. And truth be told, many small ranchers do struggle. Volatile feed costs, Texas droughts, and the ups and downs of cattle prices make ranching a tough way to earn a living. Bob tackled this by refusing to compete in the low-margin commodity game. Instead, he set out to create a premium brand that could command higher prices by delivering higher quality. This meant investing heavily in genetics and animal care up front, even before knowing if the market would reward it. It was a risk, but a calculated one. In the beginning, 44 Farms was producing only a small number of cattle for beef. About a dozen years ago, Bob and his team took a leap. They partnered with a couple of Houston chefs to launch the ranch's own steak program. The very first harvest was modest, only 34 head of cattle, yielding prime cuts like ribeyes, strips, and fillets for local restaurants. This was essentially a pilot project to see if consumers could tell the difference and were willing to pay for 44 Farms quality. The challenge here was breaking into a crowded market. Why would a steakhouse buy from a little-known ranch when they could just order USDA Prime from big suppliers? The answer? Taste and consistency. Those initial steaks from 44 Farms were a hit, delivering melt-in-your-mouth flavor that impressed chefs and diners alike. Word spread, and the program grew legs. Of course, scaling up presented another challenge: how to raise enough cattle the right way without cutting corners. Maintaining consistent quality over hundreds, then thousands of animals required more land, more hands, and more cattle from outside the original ranch. 44 Farms met this challenge by forging partnerships with other ranchers. They extended their know-how in genetics to a network of family farms, over 1,100 ranchers in 26 states today, who supply cattle under the same rigorous standards. By essentially creating a like-minded ranching community, 44 Farms ensured they could expand production while each calf still gets the 44 Farms treatment from birth to plate. This collaborative model was innovative in a traditional industry and became a blueprint for growth. The ranch also navigated external challenges like economic swings. Launching a premium beef brand in 2010, right after a major recession, was gutsy. But even during tough times, there's a market for quality. In fact, as of 2024, Americans have proven they will spend on good beef despite higher prices. Retail beef prices were up about 6.3% in 2024 compared to the previous year. Yet demand stayed strong and consumers continued to choose beef for its taste. This trend validated 44 Farms' bet that quality would win loyalty. The ranch's focus on prime beef positioned it perfectly for an era when people started caring more about where their food comes from and how it's raised. Rising interest in premium, responsibly raised meat has been a tailwind for 44 Farms. By overcoming doubts and staying true to their quality over quantity philosophy, 44 Farms turned each challenge into an opportunity to improve and innovate. What began as a local Texas enterprise is now a beef juggernaut, reaching dinner plates across the nation and even overseas. As 44 Farms proved its mettle in quality, demand from high-end restaurants surged. Chefs love a good story, and 44 Farms beef came with the best story of all: a ranch that could deliver consistently superb steaks with a personal touch. By 2020, the 44 Farms steak program had expanded into 14 states and was featured on the menu of over 700 restaurants. From Dallas to Dubai, discerning diners were savoring Texas-born Angus beef from this once sleepy family ranch. The ranch more than doubled its acreage and staff to keep up, and it began exporting beef to gourmet markets in a dozen countries, including Japan and South Korea, where top-quality beef is practically a national obsession. A turning point in reaching new markets came with a bit of reality TV magic. In 2017, 44 Farms was featured on CNBC's show Billion Dollar Buyer, catching the attention of Tillman Fertitta, owner of Landry's Inky. Impressed by the beef, Fertitta struck a handshake deal right on the spot. Suddenly, 44 Farms became a supplier to major steakhouse chains like Saltgrass, Morton's, and Del Frisco's, restaurants under the Landry's umbrella. This was a huge break, catapulting the ranch's reach from boutique eateries to household name steakhouses. It also proved that 44 Farms could deliver at scale without sacrificing quality, which earned them even more credibility in the industry. Perhaps the most astonishing leap for 44 Farms has been into the realm of retail grocery. In 2016, the world's largest retailer took notice of what was happening in Cameron, Texas. By 2021, Walmart launched a line of premium Angus beef under the McClaren Farms label, named after Bob McLaren himself, to bring 44 Farms quality to everyday shoppers. This McLaren Farms Angus beef rolled out to around 500-plus Walmart stores across the Southeast U.S. The fact that a retail giant was willing to invest in a supply chain from ranch to shelf speaks volumes about 44 Farms' reputation. It also fulfilled Bob's dream of helping other ranchers succeed. Now hundreds of family ranches had a stable market for quality cattle, and consumers could buy steak with a trusted name behind it. This expansion into retail and international markets rode the wave of broader trends. Globally, beef demand is on the rise, especially for premium beef. Consumers today are more health-conscious and ethically minded. Many are seeking out beef that is hormone-free, sustainably raised, and high quality, exactly the niche 44 Farms fills. The global beef market is projected to keep growing in the coming decade, with a significant chunk of that growth in premium and organic segments. In other words, 44 Farms found itself at the right place at the right time. A traditional ranch that preemptively adopted modern quality standards just as the world began to crave exactly that combination. As of now, 44 Farms beef can be experienced in multiple ways. You might savor it at a fine steakhouse dinner, grill it at home courtesy of their online 44 Steak store, which ships prime and choice cuts nationwide, or even pick it up during a grocery run at Walmart. It's a multi-channel approach that would make any modern business school case study proud, yet it's all built on a very old-school foundation: trust, quality, and relationships.